the sky changed first. It darkened, not with clouds, but with moving shadows. The air grew hot and heavy, like a storm made of breath and smoke. Birds vanished. Insects went silent. Far below, a small human village felt the heat before it heard the sound. Then the roar came. It was not one voice. It was many. Deep. Angry. Old. Red dragons tore through the sky like living fire. Their wings burned the air with every beat. Their scales glowed like cracked stone filled with magma. They did not circle. They did not scout. They came straight down, fast and certain. This was not a hunt. This was punishment. The villagers ran. They did not scream or shout orders. They had learned long ago that noise did not help. Doors slammed. Carts were abandoned. Children were carried. Old ones were dragged if they had to be. Everyone fled toward the forest, away from the open fields. Everyone except one man. Elias stood alone beyond the village, where the grass had already burned brown. His camp was small. A dying fire. A bedroll. A pack with little inside. He did not look up right away when the shadow fell over him. He already knew. The ground shook as the first dragon landed. Then another. Then 3 more. The earth cracked beneath their weight. Heat rolled outward in waves. The fire in Elias's camp died with a hiss, turned to ash in a heartbeat. The dragons formed a half-circle around him. Their eyes burned golden red. Their teeth were long, sharp, and stained dark. Smoke leaked from their jaws with every breath. One of them lowered its head, close enough that Elias could feel the heat of its breath on his skin. Human, the dragon growled. The word was not spoken in anger alone. There was something else in it. Fear. Rage. Loss. Elias slowly raised his eyes. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not stand. He remained seated, his back against a rock, his cloak wrapped tightly around his chest. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and old burns. His hands were steady, even as the ground trembled beneath him. Another dragon stepped forward, larger than the rest. Its horns were cracked. Its left wing bore a long scar that had never healed straight. "You carry our scent," the dragon said. "You stand where our blood cries out." The pack shifted. Wings flexed. Fire gathered in their throats. Elias swallowed once. "I found them in the ruins," he said quietly. The dragons froze. "Found what?" the leader demanded. Elias did not answer right away. The air grew hotter. The dragon's claws dug into the ground. Stones melted under their feet. One dragon lifted its head and opened its jaws, fire already forming, bright and ready. "Speak," the leader roared. "Or burn." Elias slowly loosened his cloak. Just enough. A soft sound broke the silence. Not a roar. Not a scream. A small breath. Then another. The dragon saw movement against the human's chest. Small shapes, pressed close, hidden by cloth and warmth. One tiny head shifted. A thin, red-gold wing twitched in sleep. A hatchling yawned. The fire in the dragon's throats died instantly. The pack leader staggered back one step, claws scraping stone. "No," she whispered. Elias pulled the cloak back a little more. 3 hatchlings slept against him. Their scales were dull, not yet hardened. Their bodies were wrapped in clean cloth, stained dark in places with old blood and ash. Small burn marks traced their wings, healed, but not cleanly. They were alive. Warm. Safe. The dragons stared. The world seemed to hold its breath. One of the younger dragons snarled. "He stole them." Another hissed, "He will die screaming." Fire flared again. Elias tightened his arms around the hatchlings without thinking. He curved his body over them, shielding them as best he could. His back was exposed. His neck. His head. "If you burn me," he said, voice low but clear, "they burn too." The words were not a threat. They were a fact. The pack leader lowered her head until her eyes were level with the humans. "Why do they sleep?" she asked. Elias's voice shook for the first time. "Because they are tired." The dragons did not move. The leader looked closer. She saw the burns on Elias's arms. Old and new. She smelled dried blood, not dragon blood, but his own. She saw how the hatchlings clung to him even in sleep, claws hooked gently into cloth and skin. "They do not fear you," she said. Elias shook his head. "They cried at first." The pack leaned in as one. "I stayed," he continued. They stopped. Silence spread across the scorched field. Above them, the sky burned red with wings. And for the first time since the dragons had arrived, no fire fell. The dragons did not attack. That alone was impossible. They stood frozen around the human, wings half spread, fire fading in their throats. Heat still rolled off their bodies, but it no longer pressed forward. It held, waiting. The pack leader straightened slowly. Her eyes never left the hatchlings. "Move," she ordered the others. Reluctantly, the dragon stepped back. Claws scraped stone. Wings folded partway. The circle widened, giving the human space, but not freedom. Elias stayed where he was. He did not relax his arms. He barely breathed. The three small bodies on his chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm. One hatchling shifted, its head pressing closer to his neck. Warm. Trusting. The leader spoke again. "You will tell us everything." Elias nodded once. "I was crossing the old battlefield," he said. "The one burned down to stone. I smelled smoke before I saw anything. Not fresh fire. Old fire." Several dragons growled softly. "That place was sacred. And cursed." "I heard them crying," Elias continued. "Not loud. Weak. I thought it was animals at first." He paused, remembering. "They were trapped," he said. "Pinned under fallen rock and melted armor. One was burned bad on the wing. Another couldn't move its leg." A dragon snapped, pain flashing in its eyes. Elias swallowed. "I didn't know what they were. Not really. I knew they weren't human. I didn't care." The pack leader's eyes narrowed. "You touched them?" "Yes." Fire flared in several throats again. "I wrapped my cloak around my hands," Elias said quickly. "They were hot. Too hot. But they were alive. I pulled them out." His voice softened. "They screamed. I thought they would die right there." The smallest dragon in the pack let out a broken sound. It was not a roar. "What did you do then?" the leader asked. "I poured water on the burns," Elias said. "It cracked the skin. They screamed more. I stopped. I cooled the air instead. Sat between them and the wind. I didn't sleep." He looked down at the hatchlings. "They kept crying until I started talking," he said. "I don't know why that worked." The leader tilted her head. "What did you say?" Elias huffed a quiet, humorless breath. "Nothing special. Stories my mother told me. About home. About the river. About dumb things." The hatchling on the left stirred again. A small claw curled into the cloth of Elias's shirt. "They stopped crying," he said. "One by one." Silence stretched. A dragon stepped forward. Younger. Its scales were bright, unscarred. "Why didn't you leave them?" it demanded. "Why stay when you knew what we would do?" Elias met its eyes. "Because they couldn't leave," he said simply. "And because if I walked away, they would die." The dragon hissed. "You expected reward?" Elias shook his head. "I expected fire." That answer landed hard. The pack leader studied him more closely now. She saw the tremor in his hands. The way his shoulders were hunched protectively. The thin line of fear he did not try to hide. "You are afraid," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "But you stayed." "Yes." One of the hatchlings made a small sound. A chirp, barely louder than a breath. The leader stiffened. The sound echoed across the field. It was a call. The pack responded without thinking. Heads lifted. Wings twitched. Several dragons answered with low, careful sounds meant only for the young. The hatchlings did not wake. They slept on. The leader exhaled slowly, smoke curling from her nostrils. "They hear us," she said. "And they choose not to come." Her gaze snapped back to Elias. "Explain that." Elias hesitated. I think they think I'm part of the nest." The younger dragons snarled in outrage. "You dare." "They press against me when they're cold," Elias said, cutting through the noise. "They climb me when they're scared. They bite my sleeve when they're hungry." He gave a tired, crooked smile. "They don't know what I am." The leader's voice dropped. "They should fear you." "They don't," Elias said. "Not anymore." The pack leader stepped closer. Heat rolled off her, but she held it back. She lowered her massive head until it hovered just above the hatchlings. One small eye opened. Just a slit. The hatchling looked at the dragon. Then it turned its head and pressed its face deeper into Elias's chest. A shock ran through the pack. The leader drew back sharply. "They choose you," she said, disbelief thick in her voice. Elias did not answer. He could not. His throat closed as the truth finally sank in. Not fear, not wonder, but weight. Heavy and terrifying. The dragons had come to burn him alive. And now, their children had made him something far worse. Important. The ground trembled as the pack shifted. Not forward. Not back. Sideways. The dragons began to spread out, slow and careful, forming a wider circle. Their wings lowered. Their tails stopped lashing. Fire no longer leaked from their mouths, but heat still filled the air, thick and waiting. This was not mercy. It was judgment. The pack leader lifted her head and roared once into the sky. The sound rolled far across the land, heavy and deep. It was not a call for attack. It was a summons. From the clouds above, shapes moved. Larger shapes. Older. Ancient red dragons descended, their scales darker, their movements slower but heavier with power. They landed beyond the first ring, watching in silence. Elias felt the air tighten. This is the trial, the leader said. Not for you. Her eyes burned. For us. She turned to the others. Dragons do not give their young to outsiders. Dragons do not trust soft hands. Several elders growled in agreement. But our young sleep, she continued. They sleep on a human. The words sounded wrong even as she said them. One elder stepped forward. Its voice was rough with age. They are bewitched. Another snarled, or weak. The leader snapped her jaws shut with a thunder crack. Silence fell. We will know the truth, she said. By flame. Elias's heart slammed against his ribs. He pulled the hatchlings closer without thinking, curling around them as much as his tired body could manage. Wait, he said hoarsely. The leader's gaze flicked to him. If you interfere, you die. I won't interfere, Elias said. But don't burn them. A low ripple of sound passed through the pack. Amusement. Disbelief. Dragonfire does not harm dragon young, an elder said. If they burn, it is because they are not what you think. The leader raised her head. Stand, she commanded Elias. He hesitated. Slowly. Elias shifted carefully, grunting as stiff muscles protested. He stood with effort, never loosening his grip. The hatchling stirred, confused by the movement. One squeaked softly. Another pressed its head under his chin. It's okay, Elias whispered before he could stop himself. The dragons heard. The leader lifted one claw. Fire gathered, not wild, not raging, but focused. Controlled. A test flame. It rolled forward in a low wave, stopping just short of Elias's feet. The heat was unbearable. His skin blistered instantly. Sweat turned to steam. His vision blurred. The hatchlings cried out. Elias reacted without thought. He turned his body fully, placing his back to the flame. He bent forward, arms locked tight, shoulders hunched, shielding the small forms against his chest. Fire washed over him. Not a blast. A steady burn. Pain exploded across his back. He screamed once, then bit down hard enough to draw blood. His legs shook. His knees threatened to buckle. Still, he did not move. The hatchlings screamed at first, sharp, frightened sounds. Then something changed. Their cries softened. They pressed closer. One small wing spread awkwardly across Elias's chest, as if trying to cover him. The fire pulled back. Elias collapsed to one knee, gasping, smoke rising from his back. His shirt was burned through. Skin underneath was raw and blistered. The dragons stared. The hatchlings were unharmed. Not even singed. An elder hissed. Again. No, the leader said. This proves nothing, another snapped. It proves everything, she replied coldly. She stepped forward, eyes locked on Elias. You did not know what the flame would do, she said. You did not know if you would live. Elias coughed. Didn't matter. Why? She demanded. Because they were scared, he said weakly. That was enough. Silence fell like a weight. The leader turned to the elders. They are bonded. The word sent shock through the pack. That is impossible, one elder snarled. Is it? The leader said. They sleep. They cling. They answer him before us. She lowered her head again, this time close to Elias's face. You feel their fear, she said. Their hunger. Their pain. Elias nodded slowly. Yeah. Then feel this. She released something Elias had not expected. Not fire. Memory. Images slammed into his mind, burning skies, collapsing stone, screams that were not human, wings torn, blood on ash. Panic. Loss. The moment the hatchlings were buried alive. Elias cried out and nearly dropped them. The leader cut the connection instantly. You stayed, she said quietly. When others fled. Elias's breath shook. Someone had to. The leader straightened. The elders were silent now. The pack waited. At last, the leader spoke words no dragon had spoken in centuries. He is not prey, she said. The wind shifted. Fire dimmed. He is under trial no longer, she continued. He is under protection. The hatchling slept on. And for the first time since the dragons had descended, the sky began to cool. The dragons did not take the hatchlings. Not yet. That alone told Elias how serious this had become. The pack leader ordered the others to stand down, and the elders moved away, forming a loose ring at a distance. Their eyes never left the small shapes pressed against the human's chest, but their fire stayed quiet. Elias sank fully to the ground, his strength gone. The pain in his back burned deep and steady, but he did not loosen his arms. The hatchling shifted, sensing the change. One lifted its head, blinking at the world with unfocused eyes. It chirped. The sound echoed across the field. Several dragons answered at once, their voices low and gentle. The hatchling froze, then turned its head away from them and buried its face back against Elias's chest. A ripple of shock moved through the pack. They still choose him, one dragon muttered. The leader watched closely. Not by fear, she said. Not by force. She stepped closer and crouched, lowering herself until her massive body rested on the scorched earth. For the first time, she looked tired. Human, she said. You will tell us everything. Not what you did. Her eyes narrowed. But why you did it. Elias swallowed. His throat hurt from smoke and pain. I don't have a good reason, he said. I was tired. Cold. Angry. The leader waited. I just come from the border camps, Elias continued. People dying slow. No one stopping it. Everyone passing by because it wasn't their problem. His voice tightened. I couldn't do that again. The dragons listened in silence. When I heard the crying, I told myself to keep walking, he said. I really did. Dragons aren't kind to humans. I know that. One dragon snorted softly. But then the crying stopped, Elias said. And that scared me more. The leader's gaze sharpened. Why? Because silence means you're too late. The words hung heavy in the air. So I went back, he said. I dug until my hands bled. I pulled them out one by one. They were burning hot. Shaking. One of them bit me so hard I thought it would tear my skin. He glanced down. A small, half-healed mark showed near his collarbone. I deserved it, he said quietly. The leader tilted her head. You did not know what they were. No, Elias agreed. But I knew what they weren't. They weren't weapons. They weren't monsters. A low murmur passed through the pack. They were just kids, Elias finished. The leader closed her eyes for a long moment. When our young are born, she said, they are raised in fire. In strength. In fear of weakness. We teach them that the world will try to kill them. Her eyes opened again, sharp with pain. We do not teach them comfort. The truth struck harder than the flame had. The leader gestured with one claw. Bring the basin. Two dragons approached carefully, carrying a wide stone bowl carved with ancient symbols. Steam rose from it. Inside was liquid that glowed faintly red. Healing fire, the leader said. For dragon flesh. She looked at Elias. It will burn you. Elias laughed weakly. That won't be new. Do you consent? She asked. Yes, he said without hesitation. The leader poured the liquid over his back. Elias screamed. The pain was sharper than the flame, focused and deep. His muscles locked. His vision went white. He would have collapsed if not for the hatchlings, whose weight and warmth kept him grounded. Then the pain faded. Slowly. When Elias could breathe again, the burn no longer felt raw. The damage was still there, but sealed, strengthened. The leader nodded once. You are mended enough. She leaned closer to the hatchlings. Little ones, she rumbled softly. One opened an eye. They are bonded, the leader said. The bond formed when they chose to calm instead of flee. When they fed from his warmth instead of our fire. An elder growled. Then he is theirs. The leader's voice hardened. No. They are his responsibility. The words landed like stone. Elias stared up at her. I don't understand. You will, she said. Because they will not leave you yet. The pack shifted uneasily. They must return to the nest, an elder insisted. They will, the leader said. When they are ready. Her gaze returned to Elias. Until then, you will walk under dragon law. Which is? Elias asked carefully. You will protect them with your life, she said. And in return. The leader lifted her wings slightly. The air trembled. No dragon will harm you. The hatchling stirred again, comforted by the promise. Elias looked down at the small, sleeping forms on his chest. He exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. And somewhere deep in the pack, something ancient and dangerous shifted. Because a human had just been trusted with dragon young. And the world would not be ready for what that meant. The dragons prepared to leave at dawn. Not because they were finished, but because the decision had been made. The scorched field cooled as wings folded and bodies lifted. Heat faded into warm air. Smoke thinned. The sky lightened from deep red to pale orange. Elias did not sleep. He sat against the same stone, back stiff, arms aching, afraid to move too much. The hatchlings slept through the night, rising and falling against his chest like small, steady hearts. At sunrise, the pack leader approached him one final time. You will travel east, she said. Away from the borders. Away from hunters. Elias nodded. We will watch, she continued. From the high sky and the deep fire. He swallowed. How will I feed them? The leader's mouth curved in something close to a smile. They will tell you. As if on cue, one hatchling stirred and bit gently at Elias's sleeve. He winced. See. The leader inclined her head. She turned then, signaling the others. One by one, the dragons took to the air. The elders rose last, their shadows long and heavy as they passed overhead. Only one dragon lingered. A younger female stepped forward. Her scales were brighter than the others, her movements less sure. She lowered her head and gently touched the smallest hatchling with her snout. The hatchling chirped and reached back, then hesitated. Slowly, it returned to Elias's chest. The young dragon exhaled a soft breath of smoke and stepped back. I will guard the sky nearest you, she said. So you are never alone. Then she rose and followed the pack. Silence settled. True silence. Elias looked around at the empty field. Hours earlier, it had been a place of death. Now, it felt like a beginning. The hatchlings woke as the sun warmed them. One stretched, wings flapping clumsily. Another climbed onto Elias's shoulder, blinking at the bright world. The third stayed where it was, pressed against his heart. Okay, Elias murmured. Let's figure this out. The road east was long and rough. Elias walked slowly, careful with each step. When he grew tired, he rested. When the hatchlings cried, he stopped. They learned quickly. Too quickly. They learned his voice meant safety. His hands meant warmth. His heartbeat meant rest. At night, they slept in the hollow of his chest and neck, breathing smoke that smelled faintly sweet. Stories spread faster than fire. Villages whispered of a human walking under dragon shadow. Of red shapes passing high overhead but never attacking. Of burned roads left untouched. Some called him cursed. Some called him blessed. The dragons called him guardian. Months later, Elias reached the eastern highlands. Stone rose like teeth from the ground. Wind cut cold and sharp. The hatchlings were bigger now. Their scales hardened. Their wings strengthened. They still slept close. One evening, the pack returned. They landed without fire, without threat. The leader approached Elias and looked down at the young dragons, no longer small, no longer helpless. They are ready, she said. Elias felt the weight in his chest before he understood. The hatchling stirred. One climbed down. Then another. The last lingered, pressing its forehead to his. He closed his eyes. It's okay, he whispered. They stepped away. The leader nodded, something like respect in her gaze. You have done well. The young dragons joined the pack, glancing back only once before lifting into the sky. Elias stood alone on the stone ridge, chest empty, arms heavy. The leader rose last. Before she left, she spoke one final truth. They came to burn you alive, she said. Elias watched the sky. They left you alive, she continued, because our children chose you. The dragons vanished into the clouds. The wind moved again. Elias turned east and kept walking. Above him, far beyond sight, red wings followed.